In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Thanks, Lisa. There isn't a kid with Michigan roots in my generation who doesn't hold the name Gordie Howe in reverence and admiration. All of us have Gordie stories. Some of us experienced his legendary kindness and humor firsthand. He spent 25 seasons with the Detroit Redwings, and most agree that he is one of the greatest all-around athletes to lace skates and carry a hockey stick. He was also an attentive and loving husband and father of 4 children. Mark and Marty enjoyed successful hockey careers. Kathy is involved with horses in Lubbock, Texas. And our guest, the youngest of Gordie and Colleen's 3 sons, is head of sports medicine imaging for Toledo Radiological Associates and ProMedica Health System's sports care program, and is an associate clinical professor at the University of Toledo Medical Center. In 2017, Murray Howe wrote 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father. The book is a national bestseller and came about as Murray was pondering what he might say about his famous dad at Gordie Howe's memorial service. He spoke for the family at the 2015 naming ceremony for the forthcoming Gordie Howe International Bridge, which is scheduled to span the Detroit River in December of 2024. As we celebrate the 6th anniversary of the publication of 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father, it's an honor to have its author, Dr. Murray Howe, join us in conversation. Murray, thanks for being here.
Sure. Oh, it's totally my pleasure. It's always fun.
What is the prescription for a happy, healthy life?
Wow. I would say be like Gordie Howe as much as you can. I didn't know anyone, I've never known anybody happier than my dad. Maybe a couple that they'd come close to being as happy as him. But he just knew how to love life, savor every moment in it. He really lived in the moment. That's really important. Just look at your blessings, where you are at every moment, and just try to think about how you can maximize that moment. If you're with a person or whatever it is that you're doing, just try to make the most of it and realize how fortunate you are to be doing what you're doing and who you're with, and think of all the possibilities there.
Where did Gordie Howe's positive passion come from?
I think from his mom. His mom was eternally optimistic, very loving. Yeah, my grandmother, Katie, she was just an amazing woman. She had 11 children, and she just did it. She gave every one of them all the love that they needed, never complained. She just soldiered on, and she felt very fortunate. She came from Germany at a time when it wasn't safe to be there, and nobody had anything. She left in 1912. At 17 years old, she left Germany. And so she was really fortunate. She landed in Canada. She felt really fortunate just to be there and be alive and have some food on the table. And the rest was icing on the cake. That I think engenders a lot of gratitude right from the get-go. You're literally happy to be alive. And she had a great husband, and my grandfather, he was a good-looking, strong man and a good provider, and then she had all these great kids to take care of in Saskatchewan. So everybody that knew her just loved her, and I think my dad picked up all those traits.
What are your memories of your grandmother?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to spend as much time with her as I would have wanted because they lived so far away. Back then, Dad was on the road 9 months out of the year playing hockey, and we didn't have a lot of extra money around, so traveling to Saskatoon was just not something that you could easily do. It'd be a three-day car ride. Plane tickets were too expensive for us, and especially with 4 kids. The first time I remember seeing her was in 1966 for Gordie Howe Day. That if you want Gordie Howe to get back to Saskatoon, you just have a day for him. And of course, they paid for all our travel expenses. We got back to Saskatoon then, spent a little bit of time with my grandparents and with my hundreds of cousins. And it was a great experience, but I was only 6 years old at the time. So I have very limited memories of that. And then in 1970, when I was 10 years old, my grandparents came to Michigan. We spent a week up at our cabin up north, and it was an amazing time. And in fact, as a part of it, my parents had gone to Toronto for some type of celebration ceremony for my dad. So they were babysitting us. And so I got to spend the better part of a week with both my grandparents. And that's when I really got to know my grandma. And I was 10 years old. I was old enough to appreciate what a kind and beautiful person she was. And sadly, though, that's at the end of that week was when she passed away. She fell down the stairs at our cabin. And that was a shocker for me. That was the first time I'd ever known anybody that passed away. And it left a huge imprint on me of how fragile life is and how important it is to really show love to those that you love, because you don't know when you're going to wake up in the morning and the sheriff's going to wake you up and say your grandmother passed away. And it was a challenging moment, and of course challenging for my parents when they came back from Toronto and my grandma was gone. So that was a rough time, but I'm so grateful. I feel like I had such an incredible week with her then, and I got to know her so well. I'm very, very grateful for that.
We are in conversation with Dr. Murray Howe, the author of 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father, a national bestseller about the character traits we all associate with his dad, Detroit Redwing legend Gordie Howe. Did witnessing your grandmother's passing influence your interest in medicine?
I think that was a part of it. I had several different, I'd say, near-death experiences for other people, or actually death experiences for other people. When I was about 5 years old, there was a man that had a heart attack. He was one of the parents of one of the players on my brother's hockey team, and watched a nurse doing CPR on him on the ground at the ice rink. And I just decided then that I would learn whatever was necessary to be able to help somebody in that kind of situation. So that definitely made a big impact on me. And also Doc Finley, who was the Red Wings team doctor, he'd come over and stitch us up whenever we got injured. And he was just such a great man and so kind and so capable. And he was a tremendous role model for me. Those were some biggies. And then I had lots of acne when I was a teenager, and my dermatologist was such a great guy and patched me back up so that I don't look as bad. And that also, I know how much it meant to me to be able to start to get back on the road to health. And that was something that I wanted to give to other people. But of course, I never thought I could be a physician, because I was playing hockey at the time 4 hours a day and did well in school, but not stellar. So it was only after I got cut from U of M's hockey team that I had enough time to study to be able to apply myself and do well enough to be able to get into medical school. So that's when I first started considering becoming a physician, was really at University of Michigan. When I applied, all I wanted to do was play hockey, and I thought I was going to be a forest ranger and a writer.
Was writing always a passion?
It was. I loved writing poetry. I loved just writing stories, and just loved writing essays, just anything. I just loved to write.
We tend to classify people as either left brain analytical or right brain creatives. It sounds like you were born with a good balance of both.
Yeah, I think so. I feel fortunate that I love the arts, and I love music. I'm a terrible physician, but I love to entertain myself. If you ever see me doing karaoke, I'll just entertain myself all day long. My wife gets a kick out of that. And so, yeah, but I love sciences and all that. So yeah, I feel fortunately well-rounded.
In a short attention span soundbite world where we are asked to distill a great man's life into a sentence, how do you summarize the powerful personality traits you write about in 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father?
Yeah, it's tough to summarize Mr. Hockey and everything that he stood for and valued, but I think if I had to boil it down, I would say it all comes down to gratitude. Because he grew up literally with nothing, I have to tell the story of, he said his favorite Christmas gift ever was an orange. an orange was such a special thing because they couldn't afford it. And it was just rare to have one in Saskatoon. So he got an orange one Christmas, and that just was, there was nothing that surpassed that orange. So because of that, everything that he had was so valuable in his eyes when he received a hockey stick from Sid Abel and his teammates when Sid was a junior hockey player in Saskatoon, and Dad carried Sid's skates so he could get into the arena because he couldn't afford a ticket. And Sid or one of his partners gave my dad a hockey stick, and that was like solid gold to him, even though it was used and broken. He taped it up and made it work. And of course, that's how he learned to shoot both ways, because some of the sticks they gave him were right-handed, others were left-handed. So he just learned to shoot either way. And so that adversity that he had, that really allowed him to give him skills that no player has ever had, which is to literally shoot both ways equally well. But yeah, so Dad's gratitude, it just fueled him. And when you met him, you realized you could see the gratitude just oozing out of him. He could not wait to do something nice to make your day, because he just felt so fortunate to be able to have a career that he loved so much, be able to do something that he had so much fun with and actually got paid for doing, and that he had the skills to be able to be successful in the game in a way that no one else could, and that he loved my mom so much, and he was so thrilled with his kids. And I think he never took anything for granted. For him, just going to the store to pick up groceries, it was a huge fun thing, and he couldn't wait to see who he would meet there and all that. It was like being in an amusement park all the time with Mr. Hockey.
We're in conversation with Dr. Murray Howe. The book is 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father, the legendary Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe. That last story speaks to the second life lesson you write about in the book, your dad's exuberant generosity.
Yeah, he was generous financially, but even more so just generous with his time. Literally, when you met him, you were the only person in the world at that moment to him. And that's such a beautiful thing. It's such a great way to live your life, to interact with people in that way, that it doesn't matter where they come from or who they are. It's just you're there with them and you're just going to share a moment. And he made sure that it was going to be a moment. And in writing the book and doing lots of book appearances, I've just been blown away by the number of stories that people have. Every person he met seemingly had just the best experience of their life when they met him. And I think I might have mentioned this to you earlier. There was one appearance in Saskatoon where 2 separate individuals came up to me, each about my age. And they said, when they were about maybe 8, 10 years old, they came up to my father while he was eating. And they said, "I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Howe, but I just want to get your autograph," or whatever. And my dad just said, "I'll only do that if you sit down and have breakfast with me." And so he bought the breakfast, spent an hour with each of them. And those were 2 separate instances. So this was not a one-off. This is what he did. And pretty amazing. For one thing, for an entertainer or an athlete nowadays, for them to even acknowledge you is really a big thing. But to buy you breakfast and spend an hour with you, that's rare.
You write about an event late in your dad's life when his stamina was ebbing. He had spent the day engaging with young hockey players and was so exhausted that he literally was falling asleep at the dinner table. And then a young fan knocked on your front door and he seemed to come alive again. Speaking as a physician, where do you think that extra burst of energy came from?
Yeah, again, I think it's that gratitude, that feeling that he owed it to God and to the world to gut it out, to be tough, to just forget about his own aches and pains and fatigue at that moment and make this something special for this kid who's at the door, whose father drove him from Columbus on a whim to meet Gordie Howe, just in the off chance that maybe he would actually be awake. But yeah, I saw him do that almost every day, where he would just go from barely being awake to just being lit up for that person. And he could do that on the ice too. It didn't matter how much he hurt or how tired he was. He would just, if the puck was there and the opportunity was there, boom, he just forgot about what was holding him back, and he would just get that puck into the net no matter what. And when you look at how successful he was game in and game out, he never really had a bad game. It didn't matter how sore he was. It didn't matter how sick he was. He told me, he said, one of my best games ever was when I had a terrible flu. He said, there was just no nervousness then, because I didn't even know I could play the game. And so he scored 3 goals and, I don't know, a couple assists or whatever, back in the heyday times where even 1 goal in a game was an amazing thing. And he just laughs at that. He just says it's all about just ignoring what your body is saying and just doing what your heart and brain tell you is right to do.
Part of the experience you share with your famous father is life lesson number 7 in your book, the toughness to recover from setbacks. How did you come to terms with the perception that your hockey career might end before you wanted it to?
Yeah, I remember that moment when I looked at the list and I didn't make the final cut. And we had 60 walk-ons that year at Michigan and got down to the final 5. And I thought, wow, maybe I'm going to be one of them. And when I wasn't on that list, it was just like getting hit with a sledgehammer, because my first 18 years of life was purely dedicated to becoming a pro athlete. So at that moment, it was like, wow, if I'm not a hockey player, what am I, or who am I? It was just a reckoning. And I was so emotional, I couldn't talk. So I just wrote on the board, "Good luck, guys," to the team, and left. And I remember stepping out on the street in Ann Arbor, and just bright sunny day, and just, what am I going to do now? But it opened that door for me to just say, okay, the sky's the limit now. I just had to decide what else I love to do. And I knew I loved sciences. I knew I loved writing. I mean, I loved school. I loved learning in general. So it was just a question of figuring out what would be the best career. And I think just having all of the experiences in hockey and seeing the impact of what good sports medicine could care, the difference that can make in the athletes, felt, wow, maybe that's something that I could do. So then I was motivated by fear, because being a pre-med student, especially at Michigan, most of them, 1/3 of them drop out in the first semester. Most of them don't make it. And it's not easy. And I really did not think that I would be able to make the cut for that. I thought I had a better chance of making U of M's hockey team than I did getting into medical school. So I was motivated by fear. I really felt I was not as smart as all of my fellow pre-med students. So I studied all the time. And all the training that I had applied to hockey, I just transferred that to training for pre-med, where you do whatever's necessary. You stay up all night long if you need to. You make sure that you go over the questions 2 times, 3 times, 4 times until it's just there. And I was fortunate to do well enough in that first semester. I said, wow, I could do this if I keep on with that kind of level of commitment and intensity. And so I never wavered from that. I always tell my wife, Colleen, that I'm glad I did not meet her in those first 3 years of pre-med, because all I did was study. I exercise so that I could study well and stay healthy, and then study. Those were my 2 things. So I didn't really have a social life, and that's what was necessary to get in. After that, I took the foot off the gas just enough so that I could be a real human being. And at that point, I knew enough material that I could keep going without having to study 24/7. But I'm still studying. I work way too many hours. I'm doing 70-hour weeks because we're short-staffed. So anyway, I'm used to doing a lot. I think in our house, You had to have arterial blood squirting out your eyeballs before you let anybody know that that you needed some help. We learned to soldier on through and not let whatever aches and pains we had deter us from what was in front of us. And yeah, I think when I'm doing extra shifts and late shifts and all that, and I'm 63 now, people ask me when I'm going to retire. I said, I don't think I'll ever retire because I love what I do. And I don't mind it being hard because for me, it's fun hard, just like hockey was fun hard. And so, yeah, I think those lessons translate over when you learn to just gut it out and be okay with that. Then, yeah, I think you can do almost anything.
The book is 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father. We are in conversation with its author, Dr. Murray Howe, the youngest son of Detroit Redwing legend Gordie Howe. One of your passions, Murray, is promoting health and wellness. What's your prescription for a healthy mind, body, and spirit?
Yeah, I think it's really a multi-pronged approach. So many things are important. Sleep for sure is important, and that's one of my things that I really try to strike a balance in that I didn't before I learned about how important sleep was. So getting enough sleep, just whatever's necessary, just say, sorry, everyone, I'm going to bed now. It's 9:30. I'm going to bed because I know this is what my body needs, and I'm going to be up at 6 a.m. no matter what, so I got to go to bed now. So that's important. A healthy attitude, for sure. Doing what you love. If you don't love what you're doing, do something else, because if you're not happy, it just wears on your body and your longevity. Staying physically fit, for sure. And that for everybody is different. You just have to keep moving. You don't have to lift weights. You don't have to be a runner, but you need to do something. You need to move your body a good hour a day doing something that's active and gets your heart rate. But you just have to decide what's fun for you that you'll keep doing. And I do everything. I lift some weights. I run. I ride my bike. I love to hike, kayak, you swim, you name it, I will do it. I can't stop. Nutrition, I eat mostly a plant-based diet. I have no moral or ethical concerns about eating meat. I love meat, but I just don't eat much of it. I feel healthier when I eat mostly plant-based diet. But if I go to somebody's house and they made me a slab of ribs, I'll eat them. So I think those are the main things. And then also I think having some faith in a higher power, for me, having that spiritual foundation is, I think when things get really bad in your life, I think that allows you to be able to maintain hope and optimism. I feel like if there is no God and we lose a loved one, they die tomorrow with no hope that maybe they're in a better place, I think that kind of wears on you and it just makes life not fun. So I feel like life is much more fun believing in a living, loving God and a place that we may all end up in that's forever beautiful. And I think that there's good reason to hold on to that faith. I don't think it's irrational to believe in a beautiful God. And so I think that's important. And God means something different to every person. It's a personal relationship, right, with our higher power. So for each person, they just have to, if they pursue that, I think that will enrich their lives for sure.
And part of that spiritual foundation you discuss connects to life lesson number 9 in the book, the importance of family and friends.
For sure. I think living life alone is not healthy at all. And that's borne out in many clinical studies for sure. It's not good to be alone. It's not healthy to be alone. It's okay. It's good to be alone for short periods of time, but we need to be connected to each other. I believe it's why we're here, is to support each other, enrich each other, share our sorrows and share our joys. And yeah, I think it's super important. And it starts with the people that you know and that you're closest to, your family, for sure. And even though you'll have disagreements with your loved ones, that's because you're a human being and they're a human being. That's okay. But it's all about unconditionally loving them in the end, saying, no matter what happens in life, no matter what you do, I will always love you. Always. And all of our kids know that. My wife knows that. And that allows you to be able to be who you feel like you are meant to be without worry about, will they still love me? Or when you fall short, knowing that you're still loved. That's super, super important. And that translates also to my friends. And I love people. My mom and dad they loved humanity. They just loved people. They couldn't wait to meet people they'd never met and find out all about them, what their passions are. And so they very quickly become friends and are loved. So that's, yeah, by all means, I find that the things that bring me the most joy in life are not receiving any gifts or anything, doing any specific thing. It is making a difference in someone else's life. That's what really brings me joy.
Your mom was a powerful force in her own right, ultimately becoming your dad's agent when he learned that his compensation wasn't where it needed to be. Describe Colleen Howe's influence on you and your siblings.
She was a force to reckon with. I loved my mom. I wish every child in the world had a mom like my mom. Both my parents always expressed how much they loved us unconditionally, right? My mom drove the point home by tucking me in every night until I left home at 13 and to pursue my hockey career to no avail. But anyway, she tucked me in every night. And that's just a incredibly unique situation to be able to impart both your values and your love to your child. You can communicate to them that they are safe and that they are loved in that 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you spend with them when you tuck them into bed. So I remember my conversations with my mom like it was yesterday. We would talk about God too. She would tell me stories about Jesus and about forgiveness and just about love. And it made me feel so safe and happy about the world. So I remember that specifically. But she was an incredible person. And she also had this unassailable optimism. She believed anything was possible, always. And she would support that time and time again by following through with something that she decided she would do it. She would just do it. And a classic example of that was when and I talked about this in the book, I had the bully that lived down the street that every time I would ride my bike past his house, he would throw rocks at me or a soccer ball or stop me and shove me off my bike and beat me up. And I was so afraid of this kid, and he made my life miserable. I would ride a mile out of my way to get to the drugstore to get candy because I did not want to go past his house. And so I told my mom about him, thinking, oh, she's going to send my brothers down to kick his butt. But she said, let's invite him to your birthday party. And I'm like, what? And she said, he probably is just lonely, probably doesn't have any friends. And so he reacts by trying to bully people because he feels not loved. So sure enough, we invited him to my party. I thought no one else would come, but everybody came and they're like, why is he here? And he was early and he was all dressed up like I've never seen him dressed up. And he was so excited and he was so kind to everyone. Stayed afterwards. I couldn't get rid of him. And then, of course, every day he would call me, wanted to play, and played for a while, but it just felt weird. And so we slowly drifted apart, but we always stayed friends at that point. It was an amazing lesson in loving those that loving your enemies, honestly. So she was so great with that, but also she would just ask me, what's going on in your life? What's worrying you? And also, what are your dreams? What do you want to be? For a while, I wanted to be a pro bowler, and she said, you should do that. Joined a bowling league, this and that. It was just a great example of how you love a person by just supporting them and learning everything about them and encouraging them. And Dad would come in too, but he was on the road a lot, so I have many more vivid memories of my mom tucking me in than my dad.
Honor, generosity, passion, patience, selflessness, humility, toughness, positivity, and loyalty to family and friends. 9 things you learned from your father. Dr. Murray Howe, it's 6 years later. If you were writing the book today, are there fresh insights you would want to add?
Wow. I guess for me, the main insight is just the gratitude, because it wasn't until after the book was written that people would ask me, how do you do that? How do you have that incredible patience and toughness and selflessness? How do you continue to soldier on doing that when it gets tiring? And it became clear to me that it was Dad's gratitude that just was the fuel that basically empowered my dad to keep doing all those things till the final curtain. And so I think the lesson for everybody is to go back and cultivate your gratitude, to step back and think about what blessings you have. Because I would submit, no matter what your situation is in life, you can count your blessings. And just honestly, being on earth and being born is an incredible gift. It's a gift that we could never repay. God didn't have to make us, but he or she did. And that's amazing. And so that alone could propel you to say, wow, I've been given this gift. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to make everything I can from it. So I'm going to use it to share my talents and gifts with others. And I'm not going to complain about it when things are tough for me, because I know they're a lot tougher for someone else. And all you have to do is look around and realize how fortunate you are, especially in America. Our poorest people in America live like kings compared to most of the world. And me especially, I know that I've been given so much that I could never possibly pay back, give back to all the people that have helped me and all the things that God has given me. So I'm going to try to give as much as I can, but I will always have a debt there for sure.
Do other would-be authors ever ask you how you got up the gumption to write a book?
That's another thing that comes up is for many people when I'm doing signings is, how do you become a writer, or how do you become an author? And my response is always the same. It's just start writing. Just do it. When I wrote 9 Lessons, I had no preconceived notion of whether anybody would buy it or whatever. To me, the most important thing was just writing it, getting it down. You would have to have a team of horses to stop me from writing that book. I just wrote it, and then if anybody bought it, great. If they didn't, I was just going to tell them about it and live my life in the way that the 9 Lessons teaches. But I'm pleased that people have loved it, and it's been so rewarding to meet some people and hear their stories of how much they love the book and how much it connected with them. That to me is really important, that the readers, that they feel something and that they can relate to it. And that for me is so rewarding. And I think for people that want to write, they should just start writing. It doesn't matter if anybody else likes what they write or not. You write for yourself, for your spirit, for your heart, right? And if you're surprised somebody actually likes it, then you can write more of that. But I don't think you should write because people like a specific thing. I don't think you should write a specific genre because that's what's popular or that's what people are asking for. I think you should write what your heart tells you to write, and people will gravitate to it. If there's some value to it, they'll see it.
Will we see more books in the future from Murray Howe?
I have a bunch of them in my head, and with 9 Lessons, it was just the inspiration just came to me. I felt like sometime in my life I would write a book, but I really didn't know what it was going to be about. And it was really on Father's Day, 6 days after Dad passed away, that just fell into place for me, that the book should be about my dad and what he stood for and what he valued. And that, because ultimately then that was a gift to my dad, And it was the only gift that I could give to him since he had already passed away, but a gift of basically continuing his legacy. And so I won't write another book, or certainly won't publish another book until the inspiration just hits me. So I just don't know what it will be. Maybe it would be about my mom or whatever, but I'm just waiting for the inspiration to hit.
Dr. Murray Howe is the author of 9 Lessons I Learned from My Father, an inspirational classic and national bestseller, detailing the gifts he received from his famous dad, Detroit Redwing great Gordie Howe. It's available wherever cool books are sold and can also be found online at Amazon. Murray, thanks so much for joining us in Conversation.
Absolutely an honor and a pleasure.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.